Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the first Medical Myths of 2022, the show where we talk about what not to do with your body. And today, my guest is Ameet, and we are going to be talking about something very fun today, Ayurvedic medicine, or a very traditional Hindu medicine. And I'm really excited to talk about this with Ameet because he has some personal experience with this. So, Amit, can you introduce yourself to my audience today?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ameet. I live in New York and I grew up in India. I am not an ex Hindu, I am an ex Christian. And I had like peripheral experiences with Ayurveda. So it should be interesting to talk about.
So, can you explain to my audience kind of how Ayurveda came to be? So, we know it's related to Hinduism, but where did all of that start?
Yeah. So there's actually a myth behind how Ayurveda was created. And it's a myth called the Samudra Mantra, which is basically the churning of the ocean. So in Hinduism, there's this myth about how the gods and demons were warring over the state of the earth, and the gods wanted to reclaim an elixir of immortality from the bottom of an ocean of milk, and so they started churning the ocean of milk, with the help of the demons. And while the ocean was being churned, like there were a lot of treasures or like magical things that kept popping out of the ocean, including like a conch, a wish granting cow, a goddess, and finally at the end of it, there was a god that popped out of the ocean called Dhanavantari, who is apparently the god of medicine in Hinduism. And he had the elixir of immortality called Amrit in one hand and Ayurveda in the other. So yeah, he's that god is the one who like brought Ayurveda to the world apparently. And then there's a whole debacle about how the gods cheated the demons out of the elixir.
So, what kind of presence does Ayurvedic medicine have in India?
So Ayurveda is it exists parallelly to traditional medicine. People do generally tend to go to traditional, like to your regular allopathic medical institutions. They get trained in regular medicine. But at the same time, just like you have the whole alternative medicine um, scene in the United States, there is a community of people who will prefer to either take these traditional medicines like homeopathy or Ayurveda in parallel with the regular tested medicine, or they go for an Ayurvedic medicine first. And if their symptoms get worse, then they go over to the traditional thing, which I think is like pretty.
That's kind of scary. If
Yeah.
you think you have a serious condition that an Ayurvedic practitioner is not going to be able to handle, and then they might be too late going to an allopath. So have you experienced Ayurvedic medicine yourself?
I have seen Ayurvedic medicine. I have never gone for treatment myself. I am not I don't believe that it works. Just as a uh, prefacing it. But my brother has gone for an Ayurvedic massage for leg pains. It did not work for him, according to him. And I have an aunt who says that she was cured from her asthma um, by uh, by Ayurvedic medicine, but then she was also getting treated for it in a normal manner. So
There you go. So if Ayurveda is primarily of Hindu origin, why? As you said, you came from a Christian background. So why would Christians be partaking in this medicine as well?
so Ayurveda is a traditional medicine. So it's tied not only to a religion but also to the culture in India. And you'll notice if you go to India that Indian Christianity is different from Christianity in other parts of in America, because it's, tied with the traditions and cultures in India. For example, like women in Indian churches cover their heads with a dupatta, which is a shawl, a traditional Indian like shawl for women, as opposed to, covering their heads with a cloth or whatever that they do in other parts of the world. So traditionally, it is a part of like the way people have been raised. And also people have this whole like, I don't know, is it called the argument from nature? Since Ayurveda has natural ingredients, it somehow becomes better for you than like regular medicine, which is like weird.
Yeah, and we'll go into some of that. But also something else I did want to mention before we kind of get into the articles that I have pulled up is that do you think that Ayurveda is viewed differently in India compared to how it's used or how it's seen in the United States or in other Western cultures?
Yes. I think in the United States, or at least from what I've seen in the United States, is it's treated as kind of like as part of wellness culture, which is, crystals or essential oils or, yoga, that sort of stuff. In India, it is a little bit more seriously considered. So like people think about it as almost on par with regular medicine, and some people will choose Ayurveda over regular medicine. They don't see it as, just lifestyle. They take it much more seriously because it's tied in with their beliefs.
So do you think that because I know there's kind of it's almost become trendy in Western culture to look to Eastern traditions for medicine or for wellness. Do you think that this almost like fetishization of Indian culture uh, is causing Ayurveda to be used differently here?
Yes. I don't know why it happens, but there are like a ton of people who fetishize Eastern culture, like Eastern medicine, Eastern practices, Eastern, yoga, for example, has kicked off and it's become really popular in the United States. And it's while yoga is great exercise, there is like this associated spirituality or mysticism behind it that people think has some sort of additional benefit. And the people who are trying to sell Ayurvedic products will use that fetishization to market their products. So it's quite annoying to see people like think that, oh yeah, everyone in India like practices Ayurvedic medicine and they live forever. No, we don't.
It is really funny because I did spend some time in India as well, and I speak Hindi, and so none of the videos I have today are in Hindi. We could probably have, I mean, the rest of the audience would not really understand what's going on, but it's funny to me how a lot of the terms in Ayurveda are from Sanskrit, and they have pretty much the same words in Hindi most of the time, and you have these words being thrown around from Sanskrit, and these Americans are like, "Ooh, this magical word for like Agni is a big one they go to. Like, oh, it's so fancy. It's like it just means
Just means
fire.
fire.
Like it's the same thing in Hindi. Like I can say something in Hindi that might sound very profound to an American, but really just like has no significance at all. Like Mary Pantaloon Aglagia. Like it sounds very, very fancy. I'm just saying my pants are on fire. Okay. I could market that in the US probably and start some, I don't know, some weird medical system on something that Americans just don't understand and think sounds cool.
It's like how those people go and get like Chinese character without knowing what like tattooed on themselves without knowing what it means. Very similar.
It's very funny. So maybe we'll start off watching the video of an American naturopath talking about Ayurveda because this is funny. I'm sure. I mean, we've talked. I think we've shown Dr. Josh Axe on my channel before. He's very easy to pick on because he has a lot of subscribers. He has a huge following, and he has no idea what he's talking about. So So we'll watch his video, and then we'll kind of go into the rest of it. So here, let me. So this is from a channel called Ancient Nutrition, as if anything ancient means that it's better. But he's going to talk to us about what is Ayurveda, and let's see if what he says aligns with what the Hindu teachings say about it. I wonder how similar they are.
Hi, Dr. Josh Axe here. I'm excited to talk to you guys about Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine. This is a form of medicine that I've studied for a good amount of time now, and it's amazing when you look at how old it is. It's over 3,000 years old, and along with Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine is one of the most powerful forms of ancient medicine and ancient nutrition that we can use today, both in supplementation, in our diets, and even in building peace in our life. And so I want to share with you why this can be a game changer.
So, I mean, he's right off the bat talking about how old it is. Like that 3,000-year-old thing is a big talking point for him. But you'll see right away, he jumps onto this with talking about supplementation, things that you see a lot in American or like Western wellness culture. That how common is that? I haven't heard any of that language from any of the Indian videos that I've seen about this.
So yes, I don't think a lot of Indians like the term supplementation. If I tell my parents, like even just my parents who are not like Hindus or Ayurvedic practitioners, if I tell them like, hey, I take like protein powder, they're like, why can't you get that from like your regular meals? I'm like, yeah, but it's convenient. So like Indians don't generally like supplementing things, but it's when we talk about Ayurveda in India, I think a lot of it is more about lifestyle changes than like adding something on. Like, hey, instead of eating something cold for this meal, you eat something hot for this meal, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so already we have a big cultural difference here in how the terms are being applied.
For you and how you eat. Now, you may have heard of the quote by Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine. Well, Ayurveda's mindset is this, that meals are medicine. So a big principle of Ayurveda is that when you combine certain herbs and foods together, they have a synergistic effect on the body. And so a lot of times when we're eating today, we're thinking solely about, okay, I'm going to eat, maybe you're a person that's very health conscious and you think, I'm going to try and eat blueberries, or I'm going to try and get more turmeric in my diet. Well, Ayurvedic medicine knows when you combine certain foods together, warming foods, cooling foods, foods that create movement, foods that nourish specific organs, it actually has a big effect on the body. And so I want to share that with you.
So how close was that? Because that was kind of what you just talked about.
It's pretty close, yeah. That's basically that's fairly close to what's right. Ayurveda talks about these things which are very similar to humors. Like if you've heard of the like Hippocratic like theory of humors, or was it Galen? One of them. But yeah, like Ayurveda talks about these things called doshas, which are very similar to humors, and like how every person has a balance, like a ratio of those things in their body. And like you have to keep them in balance, or else you become unhealthy or depressed or gain weight or whatever, which is, yeah.
And then he throws around the term synergy, which is always, if someone starts talking about synergy, they probably don't know what they're talking about. That is such a buzzword that's thrown around. And like, I want to know what he means by foods that cause movement. Like, I mean, any food that you eat is going to cause like peristalsis of the stomach and of the intestines. But like, are there certain foods that cause you to move and other foods that don't cause you to move? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I might put him.
Maybe there's a word that he's translated that I'm not following. Like movement could be. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to put him on 1.5 speed because I don't like listening to him talk. So.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see if he says anything else that's like more
I'll give you an example of this. So there's a recipe called turmeric golden milk or turmeric golden tea. This recipe is around 3,000 years old. You can see it posted all over Instagram for this recipe. And this recipe is a blend of turmeric along with 3 warming spices of a spice blend called tricketu, which is ginger, black pepper, and long pepper. And then also typically contains ghee or coconut milk. This ancient recipe actually has been shown to have big health effects on the body. Now, recent medical research came out that said when you combine turmeric with a warming spice like black pepper, it opens up your capillaries, allowing turmeric to get in your bloodstream, then throughout your entire body. The medical research
No. Turmeric does not go in your bloodstream. If you have vasodilation, you're not letting the spice infiltrate your bloodstream. That's not how anything works.
I like how
you digest it, and like compounds from it might go into your bloodstream, but the turmeric itself does not.
I like how they, like, every time someone says there have been studies that show, like recent studies have shown, they never have it like anywhere nearby.
Turmeric does not belong in your bloodstream. In fact, there was a naturopath a few years ago that gave someone an IV of turmeric and it killed them.
Oh god.
So it does not go in your blood. It will congeal, and you don't want it. Basically, you're causing an embolus happening, a spice embolus. Please don't do this.
Don't.
3,000 years behind where Ayurvedic medicine was, and they've known this for a long time.
He loves that 3,000.
The turmeric we know has all these anti-inflammatory health benefits. The warming spices help get the turmeric throughout your entire body. Because did you know if you consume turmeric by itself, you absorb very little of it? Versus when you take it with warming spices, it gets throughout your entire body. And then for it to be absorbed into your cells, it needs to be consumed with fat. So in Ayurveda, they have you consume it with ghee, which is clarified butter, or coconut, this healthy form of fat, which because every cell in your body is made up of fat, in order to absorb it, you need to consume these herbs with fat. That's the ancient Ayurvedic recipe. So can you see what I'm talking?
He's talking about lipid. Like, is he talking about lipid layers?
He's talking about lipid layers and cell transport, but here's the problem. Here's a big problem here. Like, he's saying that like cells in your body will just absorb spices. Like, spices, first of all, these spices are not going to all the cells. Like, you are extracting compounds when you digest the spices, and those compounds might be going other places, but you don't need most cell signaling is not intracellular. You don't need to enter the cells most of the time. Yes, fats do. Like fat hormones, like cholesterol hormones, like testosterone, estrogen, those do go inside the cell. But most cell signaling is on the outside of cells. So this is a moot point. You don't need to do this.
Yeah, I mean, like, I eat a ton of spice with, ghee and stuff. So when I give a blood transfusion to, like, most other Americans, they think my blood's too spicy.
That's hilarious. Ameet's here for all the jokes, everyone. I hope you're ready. I don't know if we're even going to finish this video because I'm just like...
In Ayurveda, meals are medicine, not just turmeric by itself, but combining turmeric with warming spices with fat. And this goes for many meals and many herbs. I'll give you an example. They will consume some dairy, like kefir. They tend to do, it's actually called lassi, but it's very similar to yogurt. But they will consume some of
lassi. That pronunciation is hilarious. Ameet and I just laughing at the Hindi pronunciation.
He said kefir first, and then I was like, we don't have kefir in India.
No. He's basically using Ayurveda as like a Trojan horse for all of his woo that he already peddles on his own. Like, because a lot of what he's saying, he's jumping on the anti-inflammation bandwagon. He jumped on the supplementation bandwagon. Like, we have a lot of things here that like are seen in the Western woo culture that you'll see when we get into the Indian articles. They talk about it very differently than the way that he's talking about it. And also lassi.
And also lassi.
God. I think maybe we're done with Josh. He's not that important. But I just wanted to get the main reason why I wanted to bring him on was to just show how Westernization of these practices is really, really funny. And just
can't stand that I'm wearing like almost the same color shirt as him.
Oh no. So I'm gonna share this next article is from like a website that is like where you ask questions about Hinduism. So it is primarily a Hindu website.
Okay.
So we have 5 things to know about Ayurveda. And so we have point number 1. They have that many scholars consider Ayurveda to be the oldest healing science. And I mean, we don't really need to read this whole part word for word because it's just going to talk about how there are sacred texts that say that this is a thing that like talked about well-being and digestion and all this stuff, and basically the argument that it's old, so it's good.
A book says a thing.
So I figure we didn't need to put a whole lot of time into this. We'll go to point number 2 because this really talks about kind of the humors and where they get where they combine religion with medicine. So it says to understand the basics of Ayurveda, it helps to have a basic understanding of the universe from the Vedic perspective. According to the Vedas, the universe and everything for that matter originates from an ultimate divine consciousness. From this divine consciousness came the syllable Om, which everyone uses in their westernization of yoga and things. People love that. The original vibration of the universe upon which everything rests. From this vibration, the subtle element of ether, also called space, manifests. Air is created from the movement of ether, and the friction of air then results in fire. The heat of fire causes the liquidity, that's a word now, of water to arise, which eventually solidifies to form the element of earth. Thus, from ether to earth, all 5 elements exist in and make up the matter of the universe.
I'm stuck on how water solidifies into earth. Like,
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So we have this guy who then wrote a book. And then he goes on to describe how each element plays a role in the workings of the body. So here's where we get kind of, we'll talk, I think the next part talks more about the specific humors, but he said space, for example, exists in the mouth, nose, and GI tract, respiratory tract, abdomen, thorax, capillaries, lymphatics, tissues, and cells. So since you have air in these parts of your body, that's somehow relevant.
oh, space is air. Okay.
Air creates movement in the body, mobilizing the muscles and enabling the functioning of organs like the expansion and contraction of the lungs. I mean, air doesn't create movement, that's pressure differentials. Bodily air also conducts the movement of cells as well as the central nervous system. No.
No, that's oh my gosh. This is funny.
This is just very outdated material. The nervous system we know doesn't have anything to do with air. I mean, you do have some, I guess, like if you have air that like you have wind blowing by, you'll slough off some skin cells. I mean, that's movement of cells. I mean, and yeah, the lungs expand with, then the alveoli move with air movement, but it's like, it's very simplified. And I don't know. Fire activates the digestive system, intelligence, and metabolism. Those are wildly different things.
I am known for having a fire in my belly, so.
I mean, heartburn, yes. Okay, we got the digestive system for heartburn. A fiery intelligence, I don't know where that comes in. And metabolism, I mean, we do have heat production from metabolism. We know this. But again, simplification. We have water, of course, hydrates the body. No way. Also helping tissues, organs, and other bodily systems to operate. Okay, I'll give them that one. Water hydrates the body. Would you agree?
Yep.
Cool. We are in agreement
Hydrate.
for once. And finally, earth gives structure to bones, cartilage, nails, and every other. So bones, cartilage, nails, and every other physical aspect of the body. So specifically these things, but also like the entire
everything
thing.
else.
Not all of the element body connection is listed here, but it is enough to get a rudimentary idea of how the 5 elements not only exist in all matter, but are also integral to the functioning of the body. So I might let you read this next section because this goes into the doshas.
Wonderful. So it says the 5 elements combine and permutate to create 3 principal constitutions that govern the functioning and interplay of a person's body, mind, and consciousness. These energies, dosha in Sanskrit, are Vata dosha, which is composed of ether and air. Vata governs movement. Pitta dosha is composed of fire and water. Pitta governs the digestion and metabolic systems. Kapha dosha, composed of earth and water. Kapha governs lubrication and structure. It's really annoying to not see these like written out in Hindi because I don't know if that's a long or short
Oh, same. The A's and the T's, like I don't know if it which T is it, because Hindi has like 4 different T's. So yeah, the audience won't understand any of that, but I'm with you there. But this sounds like and we can get into the next little bit because I'll talk about that.
Though everyone has the qualities of all 3 constitutions to some degree, each person generally has a primary, most prominent dosha, a secondary dosha, and a third and least prominent dosha. Those with a dominant vata are generally active, thin, flexible, creative, and restless. When out of balance, these people tend to become nervous and anxious. Those with a dominant pitta are usually muscular, social, and mentally sharp. When out of balance, these people are quick to anger. And those with a dominant kapha generally have strength, endurance, stamina, and a calm demeanor. When out of balance, these people can become overweight and greedy.
Oh, wow. So this is something interesting that multiple cultures love to put people into categories. For some reason, humans love patterns and we love categories. And this kind of even like, I don't know, relates a little bit, to the humors. It also relates to astrology in little ways, like that all of these characteristics relate. And then something we started to see in trending in Western society is like the body types. Like the ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, which are all bullshit. Well, I'll do a whole medical myths about those because you can't fit all of humanity into neat little categories. Everyone fits on a spectrum, and there's individual factors that play into someone's body and how their body works. For the most part, our biology is all the same unless you have a medical condition. But it's funny that people just love to assign their body to, oh, I am by default muscular, I am by default active and thin, when a lot of these things are variable. They change over time. If you were to look at somebody in one part of their life, they might be classified as an endomorph, and another time they might be classified as a mesomorph, and that's not innate to their body. That's just something that, like, that's how their body appears at a certain time. And this seems similar to where somebody might appear to have a dominant pitta at one point, but then might change their personality, might change certain aspects of their physiology later on. And so you really couldn't classify somebody as one of these things. And something with balance, I know I'm going on like a little bit of a rant here, but it makes me laugh, the obsession with balance, because balance isn't a thing in physiology. It's not. And when we think about homeostasis is not equilibrium. Equilibrium, you don't have movement. Your reactions are stagnant. In equilibrium, there's no driving forces in equilibrium. In homeostasis, you have to be out of balance to drive reactions. You have to have more of something in order to cause a reaction to move in the direction you need it to go. So everything in your body is constantly out of balance, and it has to be. So the idea that you need to be in balance is ridiculous, and it's outdated, and something that we should not make a goal.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like my mechanical engineering knowledge, which is like you only get heat moving when there's a heat differential, or like you only get movement when there's like an electric differential, like which is your voltage, which causes like electrons to flow from one place to another. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna read the next two short little paragraphs before we get to
Sure.
number 4.
This, of course, is a very basic and simplistic description of the doshas, which form the fabric of people's complex physical and psychological constitutions. Getting a more in-depth understanding of your dosha type is helpful in maintaining balance, as poor health results when you have an excess or deficiency of one or more of the doshas. If your pitta is high, for instance, and you eat heating foods like chilies, you are fueling an imbalance. Instead, Ayurveda might recommend you eat cooling foods like cucumber to balance the pitta.
Yeah, there's some stuff there.
Gosh.
Yeah. So the next point, they're talking about how Ayurveda can be used in conjunction with Western medicine.
Yeah.
So there's some baggage with this one. There's a lot of baggage.
Yeah, I can imagine, because like I've seen people take Western medicine as well as Ayurvedic medicine, and when they get better, they'll be like, oh yeah, Ayurveda works for sure. I'm just like,
So this is some rhetoric that is very intentional in these more natural disciplines. They love to go to this point when trying to convince people that their practice is legitimate and that they should be sought out. And if people believe that this service is necessary, of course they might be willing to do it. But here we have this practitioner explaining the difference between Ayurveda and allopathic medicine. So he says that allopathic medicine currently tends to focus on symptomatology and disease and primarily uses drugs and surgery to rid the body of pathogens or diseased tissue. Many lives have been saved by this approach. In fact, surgery is encompassed by Ayurveda. However, drugs, because of their toxicity, often weaken the body. Ayurveda does not focus on disease. Rather, Ayurveda maintains that all life must be supported by energy and balance. When there's minimal stress and flow of energy within a person is balanced, the body's natural defense systems will be strong and can more easily defend against disease. So this is something they say a lot, that modern medicine, Western medicine, focuses on symptoms and doesn't treat the underlying cause, as if any of these people know the pathology and pathophysiology of the underlying cause. They're not trained to understand the underlying cause. You saw in the previous paragraphs talking about how they believe that your disease causes by an imbalance in your humors. They don't understand disease. And yet they're saying that their approach, and only their approach, is going to treat the underlying cause and treat the disease and not just target symptoms. People don't really understand that yes, certain aspects of modern medicine do target symptoms, because there are a lot of diseases that you cannot treat to its entirety. If someone has hypertension, you can't just make them not have hypertension. That's not realistic. So this is a rhetorical tactic that is really, really dishonest. And it's very dangerous. And their talk about drugs and their toxicity, that's another point that's brought up a lot. Because drugs do have toxicity. We know that. They're chemicals, they're compounds. They react with the body. Anything that can modify your physiology will have toxicity. But they're not mentioning that Ayurveda also has toxicity. And in fact, we're going to look at an article, if we have enough time, about how you can have significant toxicity. And in fact, many Ayurvedic products have been linked to lead poisoning.
Oof.
Have you had any experience with toxicity of Ayurveda?
Not that I've seen. None of the people I know directly have had it, but I've heard of the stories. So if it shows up in the news, it's kind of a big deal, right? So yeah.
So then here they go on to the next paragraph, talking about how How Ayurveda is not meant to be a substitute for Western allopathic medicine, as drugs and surgery are often the most optimal methods for treating diseases and acute conditions. Following Ayurvedic practices rather helps one to rebuild the body after undergoing drugs or surgery, or even better, make people stronger so they can be less likely to get a disease in the first place. There's a lot of fallacious reasoning here. So they're covering their butts. They're covering their butts again, saying, well, we just said in our previous paragraph that you should do our thing because we treat the underlying disease and don't just treat symptoms. Also, allopathic drugs are toxic and ours aren't. And then they have the disclaimer of, well, but also legally, we are not a substitute. Like, go do your Western medicine. We're not liable if anything happens to you. But you know, while you're following your modern medicine, we're gonna make you less likely to get the disease in the first place. So it's like if you weren't going to get a disease at all, but you happen to do some Ayurveda beforehand, like, okay, you could have a post hoc rationalization of, oh, I didn't get sick. It must have been the Ayurveda, when in reality, it might just be that you didn't get sick.
Right. You could have just swapped out that Ayurveda word with, vitamin supplementation or prayer, and you would have gotten the same sentence.
Exactly. So this is dishonest. And then here they're saying that if, for example, you are feeling discomfort, but the doctor is unable to identify a particular reason for the discomfort, it could mean that you have an imbalance that is not yet manifested as a disease. Being able to recognize and take action through Ayurveda to treat such an imbalance can do wonders in preventing a disease from taking a hold on the body. Want to take a stab at this paragraph?
I don't know. One, like, if you're feeling discomfort and the doctor is unable to identify a particular reason, it means the doctor hasn't identified the reason. It doesn't mean like you have something happening in your body that the doctor cannot identify, right?
Yeah, and think about how dishonest of a tactic this is as well. Like, if you have a medical doctor that says, hey, I don't really know what's going on, we need further investigation, and willing to take an honest perspective in saying that they need more information. And then you have somebody else like this who's dishonest saying, okay, well, this person didn't figure it out, but I'm going to slap an imbalance label on this and call it a day. Like, slapping a bad answer makes people more comfortable, sure, but is it solving anything? No, and it might do more damage because now they think that it's that they have an answer when really they might not.
Yep. And I mean, if something goes wrong, they just say like, "Yep, it was an imbalance. The Ayurveda guy called it," instead of testing more.
Yeah. So, how Ayurveda assesses conditions and treats them. So, Ayurvedic doctors assess your health by asking you questions, conducting a physical exam, observing the tongue and eyes, listening to the tone of your voice, and taking your pulse. These techniques enable a practitioner to determine your dominant dosha as well as identify the cause of an imbalance. I don't see how you'd be able to find out your dominant dosha, but this is something funny as well because you can teach a monkey how to do a physical exam. Like, it's not hard. Like, it's not hard to ask a medical history. And people seem to think that if you can play doctor, if you can like do doctory things, like gestures of doctoring, that you're doing doctoring. And that's not the case. The physical exam is a part of it. You need to be good at doing a physical to get the information. But most doctoring happens behind the scenes. It's the thought process. It's the diagnosis. It's understanding the physiology, understanding pathology. And so you have people who seem competent and who can do a physical exam, apparently. But that doesn't mean that they can do anything with that information.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, the rest of this just kind of goes into things that we've already said, talking about lifestyle changes, talking about
Detox.
talk about the cleansing program. So I think that's going to be the next place we go with this. But also, they do leave another disclaimer saying that what is nectar for one may be poison for another, saying, well, everyone's an individual. So if this thing doesn't work for you, or it does work for you, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's again avoiding blame for any problems that they might cause.
I want to pick your brain a little bit about the last paragraph there. So
Yeah.
One part of Ayurveda, at least the part that's very popular in Kerala, is oil massage, right? So they basically like put oil, hot, warm, cold oil on you and they massage you. What are your thoughts about like, and I don't know, I'm honestly asking, what are your thoughts about like the therapeutic effect of like physical touch on a person?
Oh, it definitely, like, physical touch does help for a lot of reasons, and even like massage for like treatment of musculoskeletal pain. Sure, like if you have some tight muscles or you have some tight fascia, the connective tissue between your skin and your muscles, yeah, if you manipulate that, you could feel like less crampy. You could feel like you have better mobility. I mean, that's things that we know from like physical therapy and stuff. So I mean, I could see that working for certain conditions. I could see it not really being harmful. So that's something, as long as
they're not doing, like,
you're not
chiropractic.
Yeah, like chiropractic has some legitimate concerns. But massage really, there's really no harm that can be done from it unless you have, like, if you have rhabdo, maybe that would be a bad idea. Probably don't. Or like if you have compartment syndrome, probably don't. But for most cases, it really wouldn't be harmful.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that was just something that was at the top of my mind from thinking about Ayurveda for the past week or so.
Yeah, and an interesting point there too. If massage is good and like not a bad thing to do, people might run with that. Say, okay, well, there's this aspect of Ayurveda that is that works, so therefore the entire system works, and that's not true. Yes, there is something that is good. It's like when people talk about the Bible, like, yeah, there's this thing in the Bible that's true. Okay, but the rest of it isn't.
Yeah.
So let's look at this cleanse, because this is fun. This is fun. And by fun, I mean don't do this. Please don't ever do this. Okay, so we have Panchakarma, which Panch just means it's the number 5.
Yeah.
In Hindi. So it sounds fancy. Again, another thing that just like sounds really fancy, but it's,
if I'm not
like,
wrong,
5.
it means doing 5 things.
Yeah,
Like
doing 5 things, 5 steps. Yeah. So this is a cleanse that is used by Ayurvedic practitioners. So according to Ayurveda, health is not defined as being disease-free. It is a state of normalcy of the 3 doshas. We talked about that. So this is so this unblocks the channels and restores the balance. So it means 5 actions or procedures. It is a method of cleansing the body of all unwanted waste after lubricating the body. So I'm guessing you do this after you do the massage thing. It's highly beneficial as it includes preventative and curative actions for various diseases. So we have a list of claims here. This is what they're claiming to do with these cleanses. It clears toxins from the entire system. So they're not specifying what toxins. They're not specifying what these toxins do in the body or what system they're affecting. They're saying the entire body is
filled with toxins, basically.
It's full of toxins. We're not going to say much about it, but you have them. I don't know what toxins you have. I'm not going to tell you, but you have them. And you have to get rid of them. And it'll balance your doshas. It'll heal your digestive system, whatever that means. That's very vague. Enhanced immunity, also very vague. Decrease stress. Knowing what this is, I doubt it decreases your stress. I'm just going to say that now. I would be way more stressed doing this thing.
Oh, gosh.
You'll find out why. Anti-aging, improve skin luster, weight loss. Yes, it will do that, but only if you're overweight. Apparently, if you're are underweight, you are immune to weight loss. So I don't know how that works. Deep relaxation. Also, I doubt it. Knowing what it is. Meditative outlook on life. Okay. And enhanced mindfulness. So we're going to read through what this is and let me know if you all think that this is relaxing and stress decreasing, because this is...
Oh, gosh.
Okay. All right. So there's a picture that has nothing really to do with what's going on. So the complete process involves 3 steps. So Purva Karma is a preparatory procedure required before the main treatment. So there are a bunch of things you got to do. To soften the tissues so that lipid-soluble toxins deposited into them are liquefied and flow back into the digestive tract. From here, they can be eliminated. They've never heard of a gallbladder, or they never heard of anything related to lipid metabolism, but that's fine. You apparently don't need to understand physiology to be a practitioner. So this treatment prepares the patient mentally and physically for the main procedure of Panchakarma. It involves 3 procedures. Pachan Karma, which improves digestion with herbs and fasting so the patient can digest the ghee, which is provided to liquefy the... Hold on.
Provided to liquefy the fat-soluble toxins.
So you give them fat to liquefy the... Oh, so you're okay, so you're trying to get the toxins into your fat. Okay. All right. Snehan Karma is medicated ghee. So these are all... So that's kind of the same thing. In increasing doses in order to aggravate and liquefy the fat. So that's kind of the same thing again. So you're doing that twice. And then Svedhan Karma, a full body steam bath given to the patient, thereby opening up the body channels and allowing heat to liquefy toxins further. This facilitates their movement from the tissues to the digestive tract. So these things, okay, are probably very relaxing.
Sure. I've never liked just plain ghee, so...
It's gross. It's kind of gross. But I mean, a steam bath sounds nice. That's something I could get down with. Not for these reasons, but, okay, mindfulness, de-stress, sure. This next step, so relaxing. Here we go. This is the Panchakarma, a 5-step procedure in which is highly individualized depending on the needs, age, digestive strength, immune system, and other factors. This must be done under the guidance of an Ayurvedic practitioner, because the 5 karmas to cleanse the body are therapeutic emesis, so induced vomiting, which helps clear the upper GI tract to the duodenum and part of the respiratory tract. Yes, that would clear your GI tract.
It'll probably give you an eating disorder while you're at it.
And will cause something, could potentially, if you did this enough, cause Barrett's esophagus, which is a precursor to esophageal cancer. It's not great. There are a lot of reasons why having acid in your esophagus is not a good idea. Also, this just, not very relaxing.
No, I've never found throwing up relaxing.
So they're telling us that we're going to be relaxed after all this. I'm not convinced. And then the next step is more purgation. So you clear the GI tract from the duodenum to the exit. And then you do an enema using medicated oil.
No.
So you throw up, and then you keep throwing up. Maybe you poop a little bit, and you put medicated oil up your butt. And it's going to lubricate the rectum and remove lipid-soluble waste through the anus. Very relaxing. Very relaxing. I don't know. Would you do something? Do you think that this would help you relax?
No. I just want to call back to Dr. Josh's video about how he described Ayurveda and this.
And this. I bet Dr. Josh actually promotes these enemas. I would not be surprised.
Oh, God.
And then the next step, okay, so then we go through this very aggressive body purging, and then at the end you're like, okay, and then you inhale some medicated substances to help clear your respiratory tract and your sinuses. So then you have like aromatherapy afterwards. So it's like, I know you've been through this emetic trauma and this violation of your butthole with oil, but here's some nice smelling things.
Oh gosh.
So that's the second step. This is only step 2. We still have a whole other we got a whole other thing to go through. But I think this is the worst part.
Okay.
So then we have the post-therapy dietary regime to restore the body's digestive and absorptive capacity to its normal state. Yeah, after you just like shocked the system. It includes rejuvenating treatments, lifestyle management, diet management, and intake of herbal supplements, of course. So we have a food therapy after detox, which aims at gradually increasing the patient's diet from liquids to semi-liquid or semi-solids to a normal diet. So you're going on a juice cleanse and then gradually adding solid food on top of this juice cleanse.
Yeah.
All right. And then you have...
I love food too much to be like de-stressed by a juice cleanse. I'm sorry.
And then you have some more stuff with like increasing your immunity, and then a pacification therapy with herbs and lifestyle management.
Yeah.
So here's something interesting, though. So it's important to note that a panchakarma procedure is designed specifically for an individual after a thorough physical examination and pulse diagnosis. The way that they've said pulse in this article and in the previous article, is there like some woo diagnosis that they do with measuring the pulse? Because I know, yes, vitals are important for understanding like if someone's hydrated, their heart rate, heart rhythm, and stuff, but is there some certain like woo pulse diagnosis thing that is like specific to them?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I can't think of anything that you could tell from your pulse apart from your heart rate and blood pressure.
And again, like I don't trust any medical knowledge from these people after their zero knowledge on the science. Like, you couldn't make any kind of diagnosis without the fundamentals of medicine. That's ridiculous. And then, of course, there's no universal package for everybody. These treatments take a minimum of 7 days and last as long as 21 days.
I wonder if that's like the same thing like every day, or if it's like if you have to induce vomiting every day for 21 days.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh
gosh.
So who needs this therapy? Practically everyone can benefit from a panchakarma procedure because the body is constantly creating toxins. That's why it's important to cleanse and detox the body regularly. These are the signs to know if you need a detox. A thick layer of coating on the tongue. Brush your damn tongue, people. Like, just do it. You're nasty if you're not. Feeling tired throughout the day, especially after meals. So the normal parasympathetic response to eating, that you get tired after eating, that's normal. Everyone does that. So they're taking benign things, usually very benign things, and
common things,
giving people a reason to do this very aggressive detox. Body aches and pains, uncontrollable cravings, foggy mind, bad breath, body odor, or flatulence, constipation or diarrhea. Some of these things, if you have them, you should absolutely, most of these things you should go see a real doctor about, because that could be bad. If you're feeling tired throughout the entire day, definitely go maybe talk about your thyroid. But if you're just tired after eating, you're probably fine. That's normal. If you have some body odor, maybe, I don't know, shower occasionally, like brush your teeth. Like, there's some things here that don't, like, if you showed up to my office complaining about your body smelling bad, like, bruh, what's your hygiene like? Why did you schedule a doctor's visit for this? Like, why are you paying for this right now? Like,
I want to know like what level of flatulence they consider flatulence.
right?
And
You
why
need
do
a
I-
little bit. You need a little bit to be healthy. If you're not passing gas at all, that's a problem. And maybe you do need an enema, but not an oil enema.
Oh gosh.
Well, we have to do a video on enemas at one of these days. We got some weird things lined up for this year. So precautions. Certain procedures are not suitable for certain health problems, and some procedures should not be performed on children, pregnant women, and the elderly.
I
Please
thought
don't.
everyone could benefit from
Yeah, everyone can benefit, except for some
children,
people.
pregnant women.
And the side effects. So common side effects include fatigue, malaise, headaches, congestion, and general illness. An initial increase in these symptoms may also occur as a side effect. Okay, all right. So we're going to cause these symptoms, but we're also going to relieve them. So we're going to be vague and not take any responsibility for anything that happens. It is also important to note that Panchakarma seeks to release stored emotional problems. Some patients can experience mental disturbances and depression during the course of treatment. I would probably also be at risk for depression if I wasn't eating and having to do enemas and vomit. Like,
Yeah.
you seem very prone to getting disorders from this. I don't understand.
No. This sounds
So with that, I don't want to go through this entire research article, but I do just want to point out a few things with it, and then we'll kind of take the remainder of the time to talk about qualifications of Ayurvedic doctors and how it compares to medical school and what I'm going to say real doctors go through. So I'm going to stop sharing this. We're going to go to the study. This is like a very dense topic, and we could probably spend weeks talking about this. So we have a study from the International Journal of Occupational and Environmental Health, published in 2017. And it's about toxic metals in Ayurvedic preparations from a public health lead poisoning cluster investigation. So we're not going to read the entire thing. They have the abstract here, but so there were they took samples of Ayurvedic formulations and they analyzed them for metals and metalloids following established U.S. Environmental Protection Agency methods, and they found lead in 65% of 252 Ayurvedic medicine samples, with mercury and arsenic found in 38 and 32% of samples, respectively. Almost half of the samples contained mercury, 36% of samples contained lead, and 39% of samples containing arsenic had concentrations of those metals per pill that exceeded up to several thousand times the recommended daily intake values for pharmaceutical impurities. And I'm going to show you all the numbers for this, because that's really what's important. So they took 252 samples of Ayurvedic products and herbal supplements. They were analyzed between the first and third quarter of 2011. Lead was the most common element found in 65% and equals 164. So we have a good amount of samples here. All of all the samples with maximum level of 43,200 milligrams per kilogram of lead. And then they had half the samples had lead levels of 4.9 milligrams per kilogram and below. Mercury and arsenic were found in over 1/3 of the samples, with a median level of 53 milligrams per kilogram and 8.4 milligrams per kilogram, and maximum levels of 279,000 milligrams per kilogram and 44,800 milligrams per kilogram of product, respectively. So those are very high levels. So if you were to take this based on your body weight, so this is milligrams per kilogram, that's incredible. If you were to take a dose for your size, 43,200, multiply that by your weight in kilograms.
Just a thought: is it milligrams per kilogram of body weight or milligrams per kilogram of the medicine?
There didn't specify. Typically, when we're prescribing these, and when you're prescribing pharmaceuticals at all, it would be per kilogram of your body weight. That's the standard method of prescription. So I'm guessing that's where they're going with it, although they didn't really specify. But where they have in here in the discussion, they talk about the recommended levels. Where did they have it?
Was it just under the table?
It was under the table?
I thought so, but I could be wrong.
I will maybe find it. Or maybe I won't find it. I don't know, but
Yep, that is permissible daily exposure, right?
oh, here we go. Okay, so yeah, so the proportion of samples with the elemental content per pill exceeding the USP's recommended oral permissible daily exposure in milligrams per day based on a 50 kilogram person. So that's a pretty small person.
Small person.
And assuming the weight, or assuming a 500 milligram weight of each pill with a minimal dosage of 1 pill per day, almost half of the Ayurvedic products with mercury found in the analysis had an elemental content per pill exceeding the PDE of 0.03 milligrams per day. Lead and arsenic, so 0.03 milligrams per day. That's significantly lower than the dosage we saw.
Yeah.
Lead and arsenic in doses per pill exceeding the doses recommended by the USP, 0.005 and 0.015 milligrams per day, respectively. That's insanity. How high those numbers are.
Yeah. The traditional preparations of these medicines are cottage industries. They are not very heavily regulated. And that's a concern. Like, nobody knows if they're like, someone might accidentally weigh out a different amount of some particular substance and put it in, and nobody will ever know. There's hardly a quality control there.
Yep, and that's the biggest problem we see with supplementation in general and herbal medicines, is that it's so variable what you're going to get. And with something like this, you could kill somebody with this, and the accountability is really low. So be cautious. If you are going to use some kind of herbal supplements, be very, very cautious. So let's look at there's a school in California, the California College of Ayurveda, and we're going to look at what does it take in the United States to become a doctor of Ayurvedic medicine. And this is, I'm going to probably go into a rage here when we...
Oh, gosh.
So Ayurvedic doctors have the deepest training in Ayurveda and integrate a deeper knowledge of Western medicine into their practice. So a deeper knowledge of Western medicine. I think compared to, like, they have like 2 or 3 other levels of Ayurvedic practitioners. This is the highest level, what they are equating to a doctor. An Ayurvedic doctor has the highest level of training and practices in preventative medicine, clinical medicine, and is able to integrate their knowledge and practice with an understanding of Western medicine, allowing them to easily communicate with other medical professionals. they do not have understanding of Western medicine. There is no knowledge of Western medicine here. None.
Wow. What's
Like
the
thinking,
sorry, go ahead.
well, just thinking about what it takes to learn Western medicine. Like people love to think that studying medicine is just memorizing a bunch of stuff, like just memorizing a bunch of patterns and being like, yes, you match this thing that I read about, and not really at all. There's a lot of nuance that goes into learning medicine. Like they cram our schedules full, and the first 2 years are all didactics, just classroom work. I would spend 16 hours a day studying that stuff, and it like we'd have slides, like each exam was like 15 lecture hours. We'd have 2 exams every week, so about 10 exams every month, covering an insane amount of information per slide. Like we had slides that the font was so small, and it was painful, a painful time in my life. But there's no way they are covering that amount of information in a program like this. Absolutely no way. And there's no way to know that you don't know that stuff because you haven't been exposed to it. So this is Dunning-Kruger. So their program is 4,069 hours and includes 5 classes. 5 classes.
Oh, wow.
So comparing this to my medical education, so by the time you get done with an MD or a DO degree in the United States, both are equally licensed and do pretty much exactly the same thing. You are graduating residency, having had 15 to 16,000 just clinical hours. That's just in the field hours of 15 to 16,000 hours before you can practice independently. And that's not including the didactic years. So the first 2 years, and then I think our program is 180 credit hours of classroom work. And then the 15 to 16,000 clinical hours. So the 4,000 is not even close. Does not even come close. And their classes are Principles of Ayurvedic Medicine, Ayurvedic Health Counselor Internship, Clinical Ayurvedic Medicine, Clinical Ayurvedic Specialist Internship, and so you have to do all of those classes in order to end up doing the rest of your doctor classes. So you have these 5 classes that you do.
Oof.
That's it. 5 classes. And there's nothing in here about
it's just 3 years.
pathophysiology. There's nothing about pharmacology. So how could you be a bridge between modern medicine and Ayurvedic medicine if you don't study modern medicine?
Yeah. I mean, like, if you're going to learn 2 different fields of medicine, at least one cursory and one full different field of medicine, I'd assume you'd need more time than a regular course of a medical degree. And
yeah, you need a
it
medical
looks like
degree and like 2 residencies
yeah.
for that amount of time.
This looks like 3 years, which is
Yep. Compared to my 4-year bachelor's degree, 4-year medical degree, and then 3 to 7-year residency. And these people are saying that they're doctors. They are treating people. People don't know the difference between someone like this who probably a lot of time won't even disclose immediately that they're not doctors. A lot of chiropractors like to do this too. Naturopaths like to do this as well, where they will just say, I'm a doctor. And they will not specify what type or what their degree is. And so you could have somebody like this who did a 3-year program in woo medicine and say, yeah, I can treat your cancer. I can treat whatever disease you have. And this is what you're getting.
Yeah.
And this is so dangerous. So I think that's kind of all the information I wanted to go into for this week. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts on, like, we kind of debrief, reflect on everything that we talked about today? What are your thoughts after all that?
I mean, like, I get it. There's a tradition behind it, there's a culture behind it. But just because something is cultural or traditional doesn't mean we shouldn't hold it above question, and doesn't mean we should trust it over newer innovations or discoveries or fields that come out which are more backed. Additionally, like, just because something is natural doesn't make it good. And it's just a whole bunch of fallacies that roll into this single field.
So if, let's say, I were to have patients coming from India who are Hindu, who have been exposed to Ayurveda, they trust it. How could I take into account the cultural differences and validate their background, validate their experience without encouraging them to do something dangerous? Like, where's the line that we walk culturally?
That's a tough question to answer. I'm not going to pretend I know all the answers. I know that my parents have taken Ayurvedic medicine, or no, my relatives have taken Ayurvedic medicine in conjunction with Western medicine without letting their doctors know. So I think the first thing to do would be to kind of, when you speak to these people, is to be aware that they may be considering or already taking something in the background, and who knows how that affects your treatment, right? So, like, letting them know in advance, like, hey, are you taking any other kind of treatment? Maybe it's any form of medicine, whether it's Ayurveda or something in that vein. It might be useful to just understand that they are taking it in the first place. I think also being sensitive and knowing that they have some sort of connection to the practice is going to be a challenge, because you can't tell them to just, hey, stop taking it, because they're going to probably think you're trying to rip away something from them that they hold dear. Or, yeah.
Absolutely, and thinking that this is related to religious beliefs.
Mhm.
And as much as I would love to debunk people's religious beliefs, you can't do that in a professional setting. Religion needs to be separate from medicine, and it's not really a place as someone's physician to talk about religion or debunk someone's religion. So it's can be difficult maybe to walk that line and let somebody have their religious beliefs while still communicating, hey, this is a dangerous medical practice, and still not trying to discourage them from participating in their religion or their culture.
Yeah. And I think, like, just because I'm an advocate for diversity in every field, I think it's useful to make friends with, other doctors who are on the same side of things as you, who might have, like, Hindu religious beliefs, but also know that, Ayurveda can potentially be harmful. And maybe, like, I know that my parents sometimes will hesitate to take advice from a non-Indian doctor for certain reasons, so bias in their heads. So maybe referring them to that kind of a person who is Hindu and has, like, an understanding of the harms of Ayurveda and can convince someone might be useful.
Absolutely, representation in medicine is important. If I were to have a patient from a certain cultural background and they have certain aspects of their life that mean a lot to them, or if they see disease in a certain way because of their background, being a white American it's not going to come across well for me to say, hey, just don't do your culture, like don't do your traditions, just abandon your outlook on the world, how you see medicine. Like it's rude. It's I don't know, it doesn't look good for you. It doesn't help your relationship with the patient. It doesn't get you where you want to go. So representation absolutely is important. We need people of all different backgrounds in medicine, and it does matter. Seeing
Yeah.
somebody who comes from your background helps build trust, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah, and I like just looking at the news recently from India. There's a lot of doctors who are campaigning against the legitimization of Ayurveda as medicine in India. So I'm certainly I'm very sure that you'll be able to find those people. There's the whole, I forgot what it's called, but the Indian Medical Association, I think,
Mhm.
like has campaigned against the against making Ayurveda like recognized as medicine in India.
I'm glad that they're doing that. As we know, we saw a lot of concerns today with all of that. So I think we're gonna start wrapping it up here. Where can my audience find you?
You can find me on Facebook. My name's Ameet Mathew. You can find me on Twitter, although I'm not very active there, at Mathew Ameet. And yeah, that's more or less the easiest ways to find me. I don't have a YouTube channel or anything, so
We'll work on that, Ameet. We'll work on that. You'd make some good content. We've already had some good conversations. I think the entire community would love you to have a channel, but it's up to you. We won't force you. Well,
Yep.
thank you everyone for joining us for this first episode of 2022. Next week, I will be chatting with Atheist Edge about the Quran. So that'll be a fun time talking about science claims in the Quran. So be here for that same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Also, you can join the Discord. I'll put links to that in the description if you want to join the Discord. Also, I do have a Patreon now if you're interested in supporting the channel. Nothing is expected or required, but greatly appreciated if you do want to contribute in that way. Also, any other announcements? I will be on the Sunday show on the 16th. So go tune into that on the line. It will be a fun time. And then I'm also doing secular sexuality on the 27th. So it's kind of January for this channel. But thank you all once again for joining, and we will see you all next time.